Here Too hopes to amplify young voices through performance.
The Here Too project is I would say, sort of a multi-project that seeks to amplify the voices of youth activists through performance. Generally speaking, we interview young activists and then we archive those interviews, and we also use them as material for performances.
We're all storytellers. That's why we are so in love with the art form, and that the best way to convey a message is through storytelling. That's what we do. There's just something about theater that adds an extra layer to that storytelling, seeing a living, breathing human being on stage, telling these stories and speaking their truth, that is so powerful and can communicate a message and really spark change.
That is what makes theater, live theater, so important when you're doing, performance for social change. It's where you are, literally in a theater with other people, listening to other people. And that's a very powerful relationship that ends with you going into the world. So what are you going to do once you go into the world again after this play?
The Here Too project, in the way that the Laramie Project really brought awareness to what was going on and the push for equality within the LGBTQ community, I really feel that the Here Too project is having a similar impact in communities across the country where we do these residencies, and people are able to hear these stories embodied through actors on stage.
So I'm a theater scholar, and normally I, see theater and I write about it. And I've never really found a project to combine sort of my scholarship and my teaching and my art making in a way that really aligned with my values. And this is the project. This is it's like the project I've been waiting for my whole career.
I was a senior in high school when the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas happened. And I was a senior in public high school when all of the national school walkouts were being held, and the March for Our Lives movement was really picking up. And I did not participate in it when I was in high school. And I always felt like I missed an opportunity to really make change. And so when I started my career here at Penn State and Dr. Higgins brought the Here Too project to Penn State, I really thought that would be my opportunity to help make change and to do it through a medium that I really enjoy, which is theater.
So the moment we're in now, we are still very concerned with issues of gun violence, but those happen in different arenas now. We're interested in gun sense legislation still. We're interested in looking at police brutality and gun violence, as well as continuing our work with young activists who fight for change.
As times change, theater changes to adapt to what is going on in the world, because theater is always reflective of the society that it's living in. And so we decided to do a podcast this summer to still share and amplify voices.
Thank you for tuning in to the Here Too podcast. I'm Freddie Miller. In light of COVID-19, we created this podcast so we can continue sharing young activist stories while we social
I'm
distance.
hoping that the idea that this first season is about State College, Pennsylvania, will encourage people to realize that gun violence happens here too. And that's where the title, the name of the program comes from. Just because you're not in a huge city doesn't mean that you can't make huge change. And I feel like that's like my overall goal for this season of the podcast, certainly.
For every listener that listens to it in State College, there's also the notion that people who don't live in State College and aren't familiar with our town, but they may live in a similar town to State College, it will force them to think about their surroundings and where they live and wonder, is this happening here already, or could it happen here? I think specifically at Penn State, we need to do better as a community to make space for these conversations. I feel like so often students, they get in their little echo chambers and they're only having these conversations with people who agree with them. And then they never do the work to branch out and try to have that conversation with someone who may be looking at it from a different viewpoint.
I think a lot of people do care. They just don't know what to do. And so if there's a structure that allows you to do something to make positive change in the world, then you're more likely to join a movement. And so the 320 Coalition is very similar here in State College, because so many of us were so saddened and enraged by the killing of Asazi Osage, but I didn't know what to do about it. And so 320 gives us all a way to engage with that issue in a way that is collaborative and positive, so that people can work together to make change. If you don't create the structure, people will, their attention will go somewhere else. And I feel like Here Too is like that as well, that, if we give the School of Theater students a way to learn about activism at Penn State and in State College, they will. But, we need to provide structures for that to happen.